it is important that we ask ourselves, does a teaching serve freedom or is it serving our ego? Because if it serves freedom, then it leads us to a certain inner autonomy. We have to take actions. We have to be able to discern with a certain critical thinking mind. But if it is serving our ego, then it binds us to those identities, to those measured truths, and we become reliant on that, and it dominates us. Therefore, as we learn from the universal teachings, we learn in our daily lives of practice and the lessons from that. All of these teachings are meant to lead us to have a certain inner autonomy of the consciousness, because a consciousness that has autonomy would guide us towards greater understanding and integration with the original plan for humanity. And so we got to ask ourselves the question, do we want autonomy or do we want the various levels of dependence that Regina talked about already, and to understand the various structures of dependency? Are you the type who is always looking for the latest information? Are you the type who always wants to have a very clear idea of things before you can take the next step? Are you the type who always wants the next insight, which means you are always looking for something external to you that gives you reassurances, and therefore you become dependent on that? And to be able to understand who we are in self-knowledge, it's important to understand our dependencies. It's important to understand our structure as an ego personality, because the ego's structure depends on repetition, on accumulation of knowledge, and through those of self-confirmation that accumulation of knowledge was a good thing. And so we find ways to justify it. And so if we understand that that's the basis of the ego, if that's how the ego structure is, then what we would then do is understand that we have the opportunity to have a different life that comes from that divine spirit we've been talking about. And as we have been talking about teaching, whether as a student teacher or as an institution, it's important to understand the various roles. Since we are trying to move away from dependency, we're trying to move away from the attachments that come about as a result of our dependencies. A teacher's role is to guard the inner space in our lives, is to guard the inner space of the student, the pupil, the curious one, the seeker of truth, not to intervene in their development by pointing out specific things for them to do, but to be able to guarantee that they have an environment and a space where they would be able to understand from within who they truly are, and to protect that space, to protect the conditions that guarantee that space. And as an institution, to assist that seeker of truth in that inner path that they are walking. And for example, imagine a midwife assisting the birth of a child. And that midwife or that doula is there to facilitate the birthing process. They do not own the child is not theirs, but they are facilitating the birthing process or the bringer to life of a new being by providing tools, by providing an environment, by providing the conditions that help in the birth of a new spiritual life in us. Therefore, when we look at life, as Regina has spoken about in the beginning, teaching should lead us to autonomy. Teaching should lead us to liberation. Teaching should not lead us to a manipulation of information whereby we are kept a prisoner or dependent on the teacher, a fellow student, or an institution. And therefore, we need to be able to understand clearly that if teaching is to lead us to liberation, we should not confuse the map and the journey that each of us have to take. And that journey is where in our school, and looking at the symbols of our school, we start off with the point in the center, the spirit, the divine spark, because from there, everything is possible.